The next modifier that I want to showcase here is the Solidify modifier. If we have an object that has no thickness, if I turn on my face orientation here, we can see we have a front side and a back side. I can go to the Modifiers tab, go to Generate, and choose Solidify. Now it's extruded a slight bit of geometry, and we're looking at the front face from all angles. Of course, we can adjust the thickness in the modifier, as well as where it sits in relation to the original face. Above, below, or right in the middle. One option you're going to want to use sometimes is even thickness. If I have my plane here, I'll hit Tab to go into Edit Mode, 2 to go to Edge Select, 3 on the number pad to go to Side View, and then I'll extrude this out at an angle. When even thickness is off, there's quite a bit of discrepancy between the thickness here at the ends versus near that edge. The sharper this angle, the more that's going to be the case. If we turn on even thickness, then these outside edges will extend all the way until they intersect, which is often a good thing, but it can also lead to these really big spikes if you're working with small angles. So sometimes it's better to have it on, and sometimes it's better to have it off. Now this modifier has a ton of different options, and we don't have time to go over all of them here, but fellow CG Cookie author Paul Kajeji has already done that in his Modify course, and so I'll link to that video down below if you're watching this on cgcookie.com. That's the course where he goes over the settings of every single modifier, and the Solidify video is quite good. For the purposes of this course though, I just want you to know that you can also switch the mode from simple to complex, where we then have, instead of an option for even thickness, we have a thickness mode that can be set to fixed, which is similar to uneven thickness, even, but then also constraints. To see the difference here, let's go ahead and take an edge and move it along the x-axis instead of the y or z. This is something that the simple method has a lot of trouble with. You can see the result here is just absolutely garbage. If I turn on even thickness, it's not really a whole lot better. If I turn off the modifier, you can see that this is a pretty valid result to send to the modifier, but the simple result just can't handle it. So we can switch over to complex and get a better result. As the name implies, complex is a little bit heavier to compute, so if you have a really dense mesh, it is going to be slower. But for most meshes, you're honestly probably not going to notice any difference in speed. Here we can see the difference between even, which gives us a result more similar to the first one, but the constraints method is a bit more advanced and takes more edges into account to try to get that flatter result. In the complex mode, we also have an option for boundary, which if we have holes in our mesh, which I'll delete these vertices and then take this center face, I to inset, and then I'll just grab this up along the z-axis and then delete and faces, such that we have a hole. We can either go with the default extrusion along the normals, or alter that a bit to make it more round, or set it to flat, such that it looks like it just got completely shaved off. The complex mode can also do a pretty interesting thing, which is resolve cases where the normals are facing different directions. For an example of that, I'll delete everything here and add a cube, then I'll delete this front face, and scale everything along the x-axis. And here, let's say I want to make a shelf. Well, to do that, I can just make one loop cut that goes all the way around the mesh, and I'll turn off the Solidify modifier so we can see this better. And then I'll just hit F to make a face from those selected vertices. Now, those of you familiar with modeling already should be horrified that I just did this, because this is considered very bad practice. Connecting a front side of a face to a back side of a face is going to lead to a lot of problems. For example, I can no longer bevel this, and a lot of operations just won't work correctly. We'll talk more about bad geometry in the lesson about non-manifold geometry, but for now, just look what happens when I turn on the Solidify modifier. We actually get a pretty good result, though we can't see it super well, so I'll go to my shading popover and I'll turn on cavity as well as shadow, so we can actually see that. But surprisingly, we actually get a good result. If we set this to simple, then we're going to get some overlapping faces here, and if we zoom in, we can maybe see it. But sometimes things don't get merged correctly with the simple mode, and I just wouldn't recommend doing this. Even with even thickness turned on, it's, not a good result. But if I set this to complex, things actually get merged surprisingly well, and this model is very easy to edit in edit mode since it's just comprised of a couple of faces. Adding in any other details is going to be extremely fast. But if you're brand new to modeling, I wouldn't necessarily recommend working this way, because when this method fails, it's going to fail pretty hard. But in my opinion, if it works, it works. So the Solidify modifier is very powerful, but even for more basic cases, the Solidify modifier can help us work with simpler geometry in edit mode. For example, here I can really quickly change the topology just by sliding these vertices up towards the corners, just like so, selecting everything and merging by distance. Whereas if this was extruded manually and I did not have the Solidify modifier, then any selection I make, I'm going to have to select all the way through the mesh and make sure I have the whole loop selected and things like that. And that's not the end of the world, but it is just a little bit slower. So if you can, work with a completely flat object and then give it some thickness using the Solidify modifier, and often that's going to be a lot easier to work with than extruding everything in edit mode.